it's finally time to give my Supermoto the fresh graphics that I've been promising it, the tires it desperately needs, and a top-end rebuild to prevent any future disasters and hopefully save me some money in the long run. But by the end of this video, it should look and feel like new, and most importantly, be ready to hit the track again. I planned on getting the sticker kit out of the way first, but the Supermoto had other ideas. The back tire already needed replacing when I got the bike, but I was hoping to get away with not replacing the front tire, since the little wear indicating dimples are still visible. But when I took the bike off of the stand the other day, I realized that wasn't going to happen. What are the chances that it would only be flat on the side that I plan on using? It must have been from the plane crash debris at the karting track the other day, because I can't think of where else it could have happened. So since these tires are no longer needed, I figured we should pump up the front tire and make the most of them. And we can pay tribute to a legend at the same time. Hey Mom. Nothing? Okay, see you at dinner. Unfortunately, my budget wasn't as big as Hoonigan's. So instead of a Jim Connor, I just got a stunt rider named Jim Connor. Believe it or not, he was almost as bad as me. But nevertheless, Ken Block didn't just inspire car culture. He inspired us bikers and internet videos as a whole. And he was actually one of the reasons that I started making videos in the first place. I'm not sure why, but bikes always look naughty without wheels on. However, thanks to the strange 16.5-inch front wheel, I basically had the option between Michelin and Michelin, so I went with Michelin. But they're round, black, and not flat on the bottom, so they should do the job. These are without a doubt the sexiest tires I have ever bought. And only bikers will understand how a new set of tires can be sexy. But this is actually the first time that I've ever bought slicks.
which is really cool for the most part, except for the price tag.
That does unfortunately mark the end of this, and even this. These are going to have to stick to the track, because the last set seemed rather susceptible to punctures when anywhere other than the track, and at $400 a set, they need to last more than 2 rides.
But at least now that my tires are taken care of, I can get back to my sticker kit now.
There's nothing wrong with the current kit. It's in good condition, and I do like this worn out / weathered look it has going on. But I also wanted something custom and my own number on it just for fun. I was happy to find that these graphics were bad quality, because that made them easier to take off, whereas usually the worst part is taking the old stuff off and cleaning the plastics so that the new kit adheres properly to make it last as long as possible.
I don't know why, but I never even stopped to think whether these original colors would be underneath that other sticker kit or not. But had I known that this is how it would look if I took that kit off, I would have taken it off the day I got the bike. Because in my opinion, this looks so much better. I've always loved the blue and yellow that Husqvarna use, and I think paired with fresh slicks, it looks really cool.
Putting new stickers on is relatively easy, with the exception of a few rounder areas where creases can form, but I'll try to make it look easy for YouTube.
So yes, I did just put all that effort in to make it look pretty much stock, but with a race number. But hey, this is my first Husqvarna ever, so I'm gonna lean into that. Plus, I really do like the stock looks and colors anyway.
It's pretty cool seeing my number on 2 bikes, especially since as little as 3 months ago, I didn't even have a number. And if you're wondering why 847, it's because that's the exact displacement of my MT-09. It's not really a 900 like the name suggests. So now it looks brilliant and will stick to the road. But with 140 hours on the motor, I'm still terrified it blows up, because that will be expensive. So it's time for some preventative maintenance. It currently runs flawlessly, but I'm convinced it could make more power. It'll probably do 250 hours or more without giving me any issues. But I'd rather replace parts that might fail than replace parts that have failed, because that always results in more damage than necessary.
This is one of those topics where everybody thinks that they know best. Basically, like I'm going to tell you now, despite having no qualifications. I mean, I've read forums. Some people are horrified that it's done 140 hours without being rebuilt. And other people think that it's finally run in. Trust me, I've received all of those comments. But ultimately, you should always do what helps you sleep at night, and this is what will help me sleep better at night.
Look at it this way. The manual suggests you replace the piston every 50 hours and everything from the valves to the crank every 100 hours. By that maths, my bike should be on its 2nd bottom end and nearing its 3rd top end, which makes it sound like it'll blow up any second. But that's more or less for racing. If the bike is practically on the limiter non-stop and you want the most power you can get out of the motor, then follow this. But regular people can get far more out of an engine without any issues. In all honesty, if this were a motocross bike, I wouldn't even be worried, because the average Joe can't push a 450 hard enough on the dirt to wear it out in 140 hours. But a Supermoto is slightly different, because even a gym conner like myself can rev the engine quite high on tarmac. The first goal is just to get to the valve cover. I try to dismantle the bike as little as possible, hence the random order I do things. Everything from plugs to coolant pipes need to be detached from the cylinder and head, except for this jigsaw puzzle of an exhaust, which can just hang there. We then need to open the valve cover to remove the cam chain. And I realized I wanted to use the flywheel to get the piston to top dead center, which made it a good time to drain the oil so I could take off its cover. This little dot on the cam gear needs to be centered at the top to have the piston at TDC. Then we can take the tension off the cam chain by removing the tensioner and simultaneously slide the cam out and take the chain off, making sure not to drop it in the bottom of the engine. Once the head bolts have been removed, the cylinder head can be wiggled out of the frame to reveal our old piston. However, the cylinder required a bit more persuasion to get out. Once a rag goes under the piston to stop the wrist pin clips falling into the bottom end, you know the real fun is about to begin.
I'm so close, but so far. We're at the point of this that I absolutely hate. I mean, I've only ever done one top end before in my life, but I remember this part being annoying. I'm at the part where I need to get the circlips out that hold the wrist pin in so I can get the piston off. But as you can see, this is how much space we're working with. The piston's currently at top dead center, and that's as much space as we have. On this side, I have an exhaust that can't come out, because on this side, it gets caught on the frame and the shock, and on this side, it also hits the frame. So there's no way to get this out unless you remove the shock. On the other side, we do have a bit more space, but not much, because we have this chain guide in the way. And that's where we need to be to get the circlip out, which I hate.
My only experience with changing a piston was with my YZ250 two-stroke dirt bike. It started badly, finding damage in the cylinder when I took it apart. But on the spannering side of things, everything went smoothly and it lived to ride another day.
However, that was a two-stroke. There's no timing to get wrong. I've always been intimidated to rebuild a four-stroke because there are a lot more moving parts, and if you get your valve timing wrong, you can cause a lot of damage. So why not start with my beautiful 450 Supermoto? What could possibly go wrong?
After fighting with the clips for a few hours, I eventually went to buy some picks, fought a bit more, and finally found some luck. How can something so small be so strong?
You stupid piece of shaped like a that nobody even loves. I bet you didn't even love you. I'm pretty sure that had nowhere to go, even if you didn't, and you're just here to make my life miserable.
With some venting out of the way, the wrist pin came out easily and it was time to inspect the parts for wear. The conrod has zero up and down play, meaning my bearings are good. The piston had light carbon buildup and the skirts were in great condition with hardly any visible wear. It was the same in the cylinder and the cross hatching is still visible. The rocker arms on the head aren't worn down and practically no carbon buildup on the valves. So in my top end kit, I got a base gasket, this beefy head gasket with 3 different layers stuck together, and this beautiful but orange box that's more like an engagement ring than a piston. As far as I know, KTM uses Vertex pistons, and they were even kind enough to fit the rings for me, which gives me one less thing to do, and fresh rings will give us more compression. The piston that came out is a Group 1, which is the standard size, and the piston going in is a Group 2, which is ever so slightly bigger, since in theory, our cylinder is slightly bigger from wear, but we're talking microns here. So let's put it in the bike. To make things easier with the expander ring, I even bought a piston ring compressor. I first lubed up the compressor and the piston itself, and then aligned the rings. The ring compressor then goes over the piston, and as you wind it in, it compresses the rings to the size of the piston, so it's easier to insert into the cylinder. With the skirts of the piston exposed to align it with the lubed up cylinder, you can then just tap it once to get it into the cylinder. It took me a few tries, but then it was ready to go into the frame. And what's crazy is this doesn't even use a small end bearing. Again, it was fiddly juggling the cam chain and now a piston attached to the cylinder, but with editing magic, it looks easy-ish. The most important part is getting the valve timing right, but KTM even made that easy because they knew I'd struggle otherwise. You just remove this bolt that has a copper washer on it, preferably at an angle so all the residual oil doesn't escape. Rotate the flywheel until you see this groove line up with the bolt hole, then reinsert that bolt without the copper washer so that it's slightly longer, and that locks the piston at TDC. The cam can then be reinstalled with that dot at the top again, and just like that, the timing is spot on. Assuming you don't forget to put that washer back on so the motor can spin.
So now we're at that awkward part. It's back in one piece and we have to see if it runs. You would think that this would be the most satisfying part, and if it does run, it will be. But until then, it's the most terrifying part. I've been standing here for about 10 minutes just hitting the starter button like that, trying to get up the courage to see if it actually runs. I also disconnected the spark plug cap, held down the button to see if it would crank with the starter motor, and it does. It didn't make any braking noises, and the electrical system still works because somehow it managed to shock me while doing that. But I'm pretty sure I've got everything. I've got fuel in it, we got air, we know we got spark, we've got oil, we've got coolant. I think I've tightened everything, I think I've put everything back on, so the only thing left to do is hold down the button. And my helmet is right here, because if it does start, I'm going straight out the door to get it up to temperature so I can do its first heat cycle. Okay, here goes nothing. Seems to work. Let's go.